It's only 4 years older than you, dude.
Yeah.
Really? But the animation.
Stand by. Going to air.
Stand by, Phil.
Five,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by announce.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
All aboard! And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Turn to page 394.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountain?
That is so fetch.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and die.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Where's my super suit?
Hey, Fat Lord, come get some dinner.
I am not drinking any f***ing Merlot.
And I'm gonna try to forget the fact that you're a girl.
But dogs can look up. Oh, durga.
You tell me what I saw this woman!
This is the Polar Express.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to a brand new episode of 20 Years, 4 Beers. We are a podcast dedicated to rewatching movies from at least 2 decades ago, while simultaneously enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. My name is Steve, and this is my big brother,
Tim.
and we are coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have a very special episode today, and eventually we'll probably have some fun guests. They're not here now because they're playing video games, but we will have our kids are going to join us, and we will get their thoughts on our movie, because again, we are going to watch a kids movie. We do this on occasion.
Yeah.
And so since we have the kids, we are going to actually be rewatching 2004's The Incredibles. Before we start, though, we typically take a few moments to discuss any new movies or television that we have or watched or rewatched recently. Tim, take it away.
So Ellen and I finally got caught up on a movie from earlier this year.
Yep.
But we watched Fall Guy.
Ooh, love it.
And just loved it. It was just a hell of a lot of fun and enjoyable. And dear God, the two of them together.
Yeah, it is. It's excuse me.
Just a fun little mystery of sorts, but
They're just having fun.
Yeah, and God dang it, Ryan Gosling is just charismatic.
Yeah,
in everything.
Yeah,
He's
and it's
so
just
good.
a ton of fun. Like it's just
Yes.
the action's good. The set pieces are good. The two of them have really good chemistry together.
And like some of like the subtle jokes of like action movie
Yep.
lines they say to each other, and like the stunt coordinator thing, like it's so good, and they were fantastic.
The stunts
Yes.
are. I mean,
Stunts
like,
are unreal. What
where
they
he-
pulled off.
Yeah, when he's in like the digger or whatever, like and he's just being dragged on the street,
On the
and he's just
street,
sort of
and they're
there.
fighting on the
And he's
inside
really
of it.
doing those stunts. I mean, some of them,
Yeah.
in order to get the shot. Really impressive, and it's an interesting. I think the stunt Oscar comes into play next. Or they want to get stunts into the Oscars because casting director starts this year, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but Oscars need to have a stunt coordinator category.
Like sound
It's
mixing,
absurd.
all these things they
Yeah.
have. Like, you got to be kidding me. So, yeah, it was very, very enjoyable. Highly recommend. And then another one we got caught up on that was all the rage earlier this fall. Netflix, Nobody Wants This.
Oh, so good.
And holy crap, it was so dang good.
It is.
And
It is good.
Speaking of like the first movie I talked about, but this show, speaking of chemistry,
Yeah.
dear God, the two of them are like, it's palpable watching it, and it's so good. It's hard to translate that on screen for the audience, and just really cool take on like Judaism and the relationship and his, struggles with that and her. I was thoroughly impressed across the board.
Similar to Fall Guy, it's that the people involved in making it clearly were passionate about their subjects. So whether it was, David Leitch or whatever, who's the director of, I think he's a former stuntman.
Yeah, he was.
And people really involved in it were passionate about like getting that sort of like getting it right. And same like this, you have Jewish creators, you have a Jewish producers, I should say, and then a Jewish creator.
Yeah.
You have people who really legitimately care about the subject matter, because religion so often can just be sort of either a crutch in a bad way, or it can be a negative. Like a lot of times it's a negative about a person. Like they're the crazy Christian, or they're the bitchy person is always the Christian or the religious person
or whatever.
And this is just not that. I mean, there are people in it that are super annoying who happen to be Jewish, but this is not. That's not the point.
Yeah,
and they know their right. They know their history, and they know that culture, and it's not offensive, and it's really well done. And the two of them are great together. It doesn't get super dramatic, even when you think it might get dramatic between the two siblings, and you're kind of like, yeah, it is a little, but it's not. It's not what could have. A lesser show would have had people hook up that shouldn't have hooked up.
True. And, not to spoil anything, but it was so earned when Brody's character talked to her mom about her still simmering love for her husband who's now gay. Yeah. And just like he saw right through it. Yeah. And I was like, all right, this is really cool. Yep. Where it wasn't just like, oh, we're having fun. Like it just showed his a bit. Anyway, so thoroughly impressed.
Yeah. Highly recommend. Yeah. Highly recommend it. So good. It's an example to me of, shows. I think sometimes shows need to take their time.
Yeah,
like release. I do like that Apple TV is releasing one a week. I mean, like I understand Netflix is going to keep doing it, and they are stubbornly going to keep doing it.
Binge it up.
But there's a lot of me that like it was a flash in the pan almost. Like it was like a huge hit, and it's still a hit. Don't get me wrong, but like to me, the one thing Netflix is failing at is driving the conversation, the pop culture conversation.
Totally.
They get these like peaks, and then they have valleys because they have garbage released every week.
Yeah.
And then like that peak could have been, even if you release 2 a week, it could have been a month and a half.
Yes.
Like they really could have been driving the pop culture conversation. And then as a result, you can have commercials, you can have ads a little bit if you wanted to at the same time for your other stuff. But instead people just show up, they watched an episode. I watched it on a Saturday afternoon.
Right. Binge right through.
Just what it's done. So along the same lines, I watched The Lincoln Lawyer season 3, and I really love that show. Shout out to Amy Cola, who doesn't,
season 3.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Okay, I'm way behind the time on that.
Yeah, but yeah, I was thoroughly impressed. It was good. I mean, I like shows like Lincoln Lawyer because they're like the books. Like sometimes you pick up these books and it's an easy read, but it's good. It hooks you. Kind of a beach read style of a show.
Sure.
You're not going to cry your way through it. It's really good though. And then I forget. I was going to talk about Mission Impossible, but I'm not going to right now just because of time. And there was going to be another movie I was going to watch, and it was, now I'm blanking on it, and it was to shout somebody out. So I'll have to remember it and then shout them out on the next one. No, I'll shout them out now only because it's not the rewatch, but I will say John Ranney is a friend of mine from college, and he's been a fan of ours from the beginning. And I went on Facebook, and we have a Facebook page that like nobody goes to except John.
Sure.
And he messaged me like some beer recommendation or something like that, and I was like, oh, I got to shout out. I can shout out other people, and I'm like, no shout out for John, but I want to just say thanks, John, for listening.
Thanks, John.
That's because I drove down to Sioux Center in Orange City to get that Sioux Center beer. Yeah. And I forgot to shout them out in that episode.
There
I was
it
going
is.
To. So that's where I was going. Forgot.
A retroactive shout out.
There we go. So retroactive shout out to John. So.
I'll just give a bit of a cautionary tale. Non-recommendation.
Yeah.
Joker, whatever they're calling
Folie
it.
Folie à Deux,
the sequel.
Yep.
It is indescribably bad. And I loved the first one.
Yeah. Of course.
Don't really I want to watch it again.
No, I'll watch it one more time in my life. That's it.
But like Joaquin Phoenix is incredible in that.
Sure. Yeah.
And they did almost everything wrong in this. And it could have been cool from like the musical stuff in his head. But just the overall story of where they left it from the first and what they tried to accomplish in this, like all-time top 5 worst endings of a movie that I've seen. I was like, are you effing kidding me? This is how you're going to do this?
Yeah.
It was so bad. And I got halfway through. I was like, I need to finish it just to finish it. But I'd heard it was bad. And it's like, oh no, it lives up to the hype of taking, sometimes it's like we texted about, sometimes it's okay to not follow up $1 billion movie. Just be happy you had that and leave it alone. But there was no addition and actually subtraction. Like, just watch the first if you ever are kind of watch like a really sad, awful thing. But this is so bad.
Yeah, I don't really have interest of seeing it, and I didn't. Even really from the trailers, it looked cool, but beyond that, I was like, they weren't going to tie this into the DCU of any way, shape, or form, or with the Batman, Matt Reeves movies. Like they had, I feel like they had an opportunity to really kind of tie those in, and they just sort of took the money and ran. Yeah. It was like, we're just going to make this $250 million movie, and I mean, one thing seems to be for sure: Todd Phillips will only make comedies ever again. He's pretty much in that lane. Yeah, he pretty much. Well, I mean, he was nominated for 3 Oscars or whatever for the first one, but he
and through challenges through no fault of Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah, he's still incredible. Yeah, and you cannot take your eyes off him. Lady Gaga was fine. Yeah. But I still was like, oh, dude, you're so better than this. But skip it. Cool. That's all I got.
All right. Well, as mentioned, we are going to rewatch The Incredibles. The film is a Pixar take on the superhero genre. It takes place in a world where heroes exist, but are forced to live in obscurity in a world that no longer trusts them for protection. Mr. and Mrs. Incredible are raising 3 kids in the suburbs when Mr. Incredible is recruited into being a hero once again. Soon enough, though, they discover that other former heroes are being killed off one by one, and the Incredibles family must join together to save themselves and eventually save the world. The film is written and directed by Brad Bird and stars the voice talents of Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter, Samuel L. Jackson, and Jason Lee.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
This is a social network.
You don't have to be an intellectual property expert to understand the difference between right and wrong.
Where we take a look back at the critical and fan reception from 2 decades ago. Mark! As usual, Tim takes point on this, so take it away, Tim.
You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything. $1 billion.
The IMDb rating is a solid 8 out of 10. Nice. Very high in the grand scheme of things for many movies we've watched. Yeah. Jeff Strickler of Minneapolis Star Tribune, said, a computer-generated animated adventure about retired superheroes. The Incredibles blends action, humor, and even a touch of earnest emotion into a dazzling visual package. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone magazine said, while delivering the goods is a rip-roaring action adventure and in the process rocketing the art of animation to new heights of imagination, humor, and wonder, director-writer Brad Bird has crafted a film that breaks fresh ground and defies all the rules. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4. Said director Bird's previous film was The Iron Giant, about a misunderstood robot from outer space and a little boy who becomes his friend. It had a charm and delicacy that was unique in the genre, and for his second film, it is just as special. On the surface, The Incredibles is a goof on superhero comics, yet underneath, it's a critique of modern American uniformity, especially in the subtle ways it observes its gifted characters trying to dumb down and just join the crowd. Academy Awards that year up for 4 nominations and won 2 of them. 2 nominations it had were Sound Mixing, an original screenplay by Brad Bird, and the wins, not to be confused with mixing, but it's sound editing. Yeah. Again, whatever.
They're now combined, actually.
Right? It's like splitting hairs. And then Best Animated Feature that year.
Nice.
I
want to just also shout out, since Brad Bird's a regular listener of ours,
BB.
Thank you for not, of all the movies that do not need a sequel, it's The Iron Giant.
Right?
Like, just thank you for leaving it alone.
Yes.
I appreciate it. So, anyway, well, there we go. We are going to pause and rewatch the movie. If you are so inclined, go right ahead and watch along with us. If not, we'll see you on the other side of this break. Here now is The Incredibles.
Honey!
What?
Where's my super suit?
What?
Where is my super suit?
Put it away.
Where?
Why do you need to know?
I need it!
Don't you think about running off to doing no daring do? We've been planning this dinner for 2 months.
The public is in danger!
My evening's in danger.
You tell me what my suit is, woman! We are talking about the greater good!
Greater good? I am your wife. I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get.
We begin begin our discussion with our reaction segment that we call Spotlight.
This is Boston, and the church does not want them to be found, so they are not there.
This is where we highlight and discuss our top takeaways of any kind from rewatching our subject film.
We've got two stories here. We've got a story about degenerate clergy, and we've got a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry.
If there were 90 of these bastards, people would know.
Maybe they do.
This is Spotlight.
They knew, and they let it happen.
All right. Well, welcome back to 20 Years 4 Beers, where we have just finished rewatching The Incredibles and also have had 4 new beers that we will review in a segment coming up. Excuse me. But first, we talk about our immediate reactions in this Spotlight segment. And once again, I think we've had this a couple times. Was it Harry Potter earlier this year with your kids? And Matt's been around before, but Shaun of the Dead. Yeah, well, but you weren't.
I didn't do that. He experienced it.
Yeah. Well, we've got our kids.
Some guests.
We got our kids.
We're watching
guests.
a kids movie.
Yes.
On Family Fun.
We got to do it. So, I guess
we'll go Matt first.
Matt, do you want to talk about your reaction to the movie?
I think that the first one is probably just so much better than the second one. I feel like there was less story for the second one, and then the first one is just such a feel-good movie. And it's a great movie about family.
Yeah.
And for it being a movie back in 2004, and for them to do that good of animation, it's insane. And I really like it. So
it's only 4 years older than you, dude.
Yeah.
Really? But the animation.
I know it's not that much older than you.
Well, no, but
what did you have a favorite part?
Probably when the kids finally realize their full potential and they get to use all their powers.
Okay, all right,
nice,
cool. All right, any other thoughts?
No.
All right, cool. Oh, hang tight.
Nice, Audrey. What were your thoughts?
I think it was really good. I really like it. There were some parts that I was kind of grossed out by, specifically the kissing.
That's right. Yeah. The mom and dad kissing. Oh, kill me now.
Yeah, so I think it's a really great movie, and yeah, so my favorite.
Did you have a favorite part?
Whenever Edna or Frozen was on the screen.
Sure.
Edna, I feel like, is the best character.
Give us your best Edna voice.
No capes, darling.
Nice job.
Yeah, I love Edna. She's an icon.
Nice.
An icon.
Good work.
Every superhero should listen to her.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Everett, do you want to chime in?
Capes. Ev, come on over. What were your thoughts on it? Did you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was your favorite part?
When Dash started walking on water.
Running on the water? Sure.
Dash was running on water.
Yeah.
You guys were like, Jesus!
I'm telling you, next year you should be Dash for Halloween, man.
No.
Yep.
Yeah. It's uncanny.
I denied.
You denied?
I denied.
Good. All right. Thanks, guys. It was a fun time watching.
Any other thoughts?
Edna's the best character by far.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
No, Frozen. So
Frozen's good.
Frozen.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good job. Good job. Good job. All right. Oh, thank you very much.
Listen, we're the only reason why your podcast is going good.
What is that?
We're the only reason your podcast is going good.
Absolutely. That must be it.
Yep.
That must
the
be
draw.
it.
Thanks, guys.
Dozens of people are enjoying it.
Have fun on Roblox.
Enjoy. Be nice. All right. Well, on that note,
with that reaction segment,
yeah. Tim, what do you got? What do you got? The first reactions? I mean, this is kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really got.
So when this came out, I absolutely loved it.
Okay.
Because it felt like, an appreciation for the medium from a animated standpoint. And we had appreciated Pixar up to that point with what they produced. Like they were pretty much like flawless.
Yeah, they were perfect.
Yeah, so I had no doubt that it'd be great.
What do we have? Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc.
And Finding Nemo.
And Nemo.
Which we covered on the podcast last year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, and so it was like this studio is producing the best stuff out there. But this felt like a next leap up for me in terms of using the medium to not just have it be like a kid's movie.
Mm-hmm.
This feels very grown up, like an adult film just using animation.
Sure. Yep.
And so that's what I always think makes it stand out to me. And I just flat out love this movie.
Yeah.
Like from start to finish, it is just an appreciation for the genre of superhero, but it doesn't just like retread some of these things. It adds in so many great details from the family dynamics that we'll talk through. But I remember loving it. And admittedly, I haven't seen it in probably 10 years.
Sure.
But it's so freaking good. It's so good.
Yeah, I guess I can't remember, my reaction at the time. I would think obviously I would have loved it like everything else. It feels and felt like a step forward, similar to what Nemo did, because Nemo allowed in the world of these inanimate objects or monsters or whatever.
Yes.
Nemo allowed like depth of field. You could really get that sort of like world, this grand view of the world, and lots of like I think you see it on the island here with the foliage and the you really see like a real world potential of what Pixar can do. But what this represented for me, excuse me, and I agree with you, it is not a kids movie in a sense of this is if this were a live action film, it woun't be a kids movie. It would be a family,
right?
Because it centers around the parents. It doesn't center around the kids.
No,
it is an adult story, told through the lens of an animated film. And I think that's where that felt different to me. I mean, all previous Pixar films, as much as they are amazing, and they are, they're told sort of from towards a kid's perspective. Yes, I understand Marlin is a dad in Nemo, but again, it's just really told towards like with kids in mind. And I feel like this is like, we're going to tell an adult story here. These are two parents who, and like a married couple who are not fighting necessarily, but they're not happy.
Yeah.
Like their world is just not what it should be. They're both disappointed. And I think it's an adult story. And so it took what Pixar had sort of laid the foundation of both visually and like from a creative in the medium and built off of that for the adults. Because again, keeping in mind that kids who are maybe like 10, 12, 13 when Toy Story came out, they're in their 20s at this point.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
So it was, you start to think, oh, maybe these are stories growing up with their audience as well. So
yeah, I mean, it's like 10 minutes in, and it's a great opening sequence, a lot of fun, and then all of a sudden we're gonna have this newsreel about like the need for tort reform.
Yeah. And like a dude killing himself. Like, I mean,
yeah, he's stopping a dude from killing himself.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this doesn't feel. I mean, it's not
this
weighty.
Wasn't. Yeah, exactly.
But it definitely doesn't feel like a nice, lighthearted, fun superhero movie,
right?
Even though it is throughout. But I agree, the dynamics of the film, what makes it stand out to me and still hold up these 20 years later, is the superhero format, but told through the family dynamic. So yes, a married couple, just kind of in the doldrums of the routine, and feeling like, they're suppressing their potential due to the scrutiny placed upon what happened before, where, this grandiose world, the superheroes are great, and all it takes is one douchebag to sue them. And then it opens the floodgates. And it kind of feels like a weird ahead of its time commentary from Brad Bird, the director, where it's like, if you really thought about it, and actually they do that later in Marvel movies, the cinematic universe, like, what would it be like if countless, or massive destruction occurs, and these like superheroes are just like, well, saved you, peace out, but there's no like real consequences for that. And so I love that tension of the movie, where the core of it isn't just superheroes grappling with like, how do we manage our abilities? It is a realistic take on them living amongst us, and having to figure out like the tedium of their day-to-day lives. And what I always really appreciate is the kid dynamic. Yeah. In terms of trying to stress to them, like, we're just normal, we're no big deal. But when they're having the dinner scene and Bob learns that Dash was in trouble, but he's like, they filmed you when you were still too fast for it. Like you can see that passion that he has as a dad, but also superhero of like, oh my God, we are just living our boring lives. And how great is it that you were able to get away with doing something wrong and, not be caught. And so I think that aspect of just, we're going to tell a great story, but to gravitate it, you're right. Like in the real world, everything prior to this for Pixar was, I mean, even though like the animals and the fish for like Finding Nemo was realistic, it's farcical. Like it's just like, it's not really, or fantastical, I should say, like a real thing. This felt the first time of like reality. And so I think this stands out in terms of this felt like a massive step forward for Pixar.
I think what for me stood out is like I think when it's important, like you talk about the world, it's important that they made this a world that was like the 50s, 60s.
Yes.
Because like
a retro style.
The humans don't look real. Like they don't look realistic.
No.
Recently I rewatched Coco, which is fast becoming one of my favorite Pixar films terms of just emotional heft or whatever. But like when you see Mama Coco and like the wrinkles of her face and like you're just like, what the actual F?
Yeah.
Like are you, like just the advancements they made in the humans over the years, these are very clearly animated humans. They're not even trying for realism. But what I think works in the world building is putting them in like a 1950s and 60s feel. In that world, you can kind of be fantastical, but still grounded in some realism. And I think that really helps this movie. We can get around it because if they were modern, if they were like now, it would feel so out of place.
Correct.
So I really like that sort of understanding that they were like, I don't know if that was planned, but I do feel like they put it in this world and that fits. But if you put that in a early 2000s world, it would have felt really totally out of place.
Yeah, because you're right. The animation at the time, while still feeling like it holds up, certainly.
Oh, sure.
Had that like rubbery feel to it.
Skin did not look.
No, like the human aspect could never really be done until I think some later movies. And so you're right. Like that's play with that and have it feel not like it's really in our world, but this kind of
like a nostalgic look back,
like through a lens, like kind of like a hazy lens of like, oh, this is what it was like before. And so I totally agree. It works for that aspect of it, and to that aspect of the writer director and the feeling of like, it sounds weird to think about like an animated film, but the direction of it. And the choices of how he's moving through these scenes is really underappreciated. Like, and I think that's why it felt like an additional step forward for Pixar, where the staging, the camera movements, the action just felt like a new focus for an animated film. That I remember at the time feeling like, this feels different. This did like who this Brad Bird is. And I actually don't think I had seen Iron Giant before seeing this.
Sure.
I'd heard like, oh, it's a great movie. And like, of course it's a classic, but I couldn't necessarily appreciate, but this felt like, who is this director? And his staging and like these tiny details, like when they're in the car talking about like the good old days and it pans across and it like Frozone's in the background. It's just like a simple thing, but it didn't feel like just like it felt like a regular real movie through just an animated lens. And so I really think his direction and the choices of the scenes is really underappreciated for this.
Yeah. Brad Bird's the star of this film.
Totally.
It is his, not to say the voices aren't bad, and we'll get back to that or anything like that, but and when I think of, obviously he goes on to do Ratatouille, but then he does Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
And that's
animated
a great movie.
Yes.
And it has that action set pieces, and he does a great job with the vision, like the camera angles and stuff, and that shows in this a movie like this. So you bring in, and this is not a knock on Andrew Stanton before him or John Lasseter before them, from a filmmaking
professional
standpoint.
lens, yes.
But obviously classic, like just animated directors in their own.
Yes.
But if this one feels like a real quote unquote live action director who brings in those live action feel,
yes.
Which again, Stanton, it's not his fault. You're underwater. But
sure,
it's just Brad Bird, from a writing standpoint, it's a realistic family feel.
Yeah.
Like a nuclear family from the 1950s, 1960s, breaking down a little bit. Like, he obviously has real world experience or like a real understanding of this. And it's a really funny family who clearly loves each other, but just gets on each other's nerves all the time. Like, he brings everything into it. The writing is great. He is great. The direction is great. And by the way, Tomorrowland is a better film than people give it credit for. So, in terms
it's been a long time. I think I saw it once. And
better
I was like,
than people give it credit for.
Okay.
But anyway, Brad Bird is the star of this movie.
It felt like this guy is going to be a difference maker in like this genre, like from animated, if you will.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. Like his choices and how he accomplishes it in the film, it is fantastic. Like scene by scene.
Yeah.
It's so, and then the writing of it is such a great homage to these like superhero tropes, throwing in like Bond villain stuff. Like it didn't ever feel like it's just like within this world of superhero. It's got like family drama and dynamics and almost like sitcom.
Oh yeah,
aspect.
when she looks at her own ass and
like in the
she
mirror,
realizes how fat her ass has gotten.
Like she's like, oh, okay. Like it's just like these tiny details that really, really, it fleshes out these characters. But what stands out to me, and maybe it's through the lens of after 20 years, certainly of like Marvel Cinematic Universe and like team ups and all these things, the family dynamics to me are absolutely the best part of the film.
Yeah.
The struggle of balancing their need to kind of blend in to protect who they are. And I love that, again, from a parental lens of doing what I can to protect my kids, but am I really protecting them if I'm suppressing their talent,
right,
and who they really can be,
right?
And I love that tension the movie grapples with. And then you throw in the marital element where, you know, Bob feels like completely useless in the world. His job is basically like to deny people's insurance. And then when it becomes somewhat suspicious for Helen, where she's thinking he's having an affair, like it's this great play on it. You're like, this isn't a kids movie, an animated kids movie. It's deeper and much more weighted to it. Great touches throughout, and then I'll talk about it a little later. Like when they come together as a family to fight, to me, I'm like, this is just the perfect buildup for these tensions and challenges before.
I mean, it's also, are these our first Pixar deaths?
I mean, outside of like the mom of Nemo's mom.
Yeah. But I mean, like, because you don't have
like,
like you have henchmen dying here. True. You've got Syndrome, the bad guy, dying at the end. You've got a lot of actual
like supers
death.
being killed
and
off
supers
prior
being killed.
to this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very adult story
film.
Yes. I mean, you just don't. Yes, you're right. Nemo's mom at the beginning.
Yeah, major crux.
Right.
Outside of that.
Yeah, I'm like kind of
there
like,
really isn't.
No, there really.
Else.
I mean, I guess Hopper dies at the end.
Yeah, I mean, like
but he doesn't like you don't.
A villain,
see it.
receives his comeuppance, but like nothing like this.
There's a lot of death that's just sort of accepted in this movie, and it's very understood that this is an adult story. So, so I guess, moving off of that, can you think of a Pixar film that does not have the right voice in the right role?
Pixar's unparalleled for its vocal talent.
Like, I just can't think of anyone. I'm sure there are some that you're kind of like, oh, okay, maybe, but I can't think of anyone who is in the wrong role. Like, I remember thinking at the time, Craig T. Nelson,
right?
That's who you got to lead this thing.
Yes,
you know, I mean, you could say that about Albert Brooks too, about Finding Nemo.
Exactly,
but what you need, it's not that the person does that voice. He's got that just strong voice. Like somebody heard that and thought, this is Mr. Incredible. Everybody is perfect in this, of course, but I cannot think of a Pixar film. Speaking of casting directors, like from an Oscar standpoint, I can't think of a Pixar film that has like just bad voice talent. Just swing and a miss on that one. Pixar.
Well, think about we covered Shrek in the first season,
sure,
for us, and like other movies that came out and animated films, they always felt like they were trying to draw like a marquee name.
Non-Pixar films, I agree. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything outside of Pixar was like, we're gonna have Will Smith in Shark Tale or whatever it is. And it's like,
Mike Myers and Cameron Diaz at the time.
Oh, cool. Like, and some of it works, but I agree. Like, they never were driven by. I mean, whatever Violet's, I forget the woman that does her voice. Her name like Sarah Powell or whatever, like that.
Yeah,
she was a This American Life podcaster, blogger, like. Like she just did like a voice on the radio.
Yeah.
And Brad Bird heard her and it's like, you gotta be, so she had never done acting before.
Yeah.
And so
this is like all she's done.
Yeah. Like to that level, it's like, we're not going to try and find someone like, and just like shoehorn her in.
Right.
This person is the guy. Yes. And so Craig T. Nelson, who is great, but he's not going to draw people in. Like, oh, I really want to see what Craig T. Nelson's doing.
Yeah, they could have put Miley Cyrus in as Violet.
They could have been like,
Bolt a few years later or whatever, but they could have done some sort of
draw a name.
Yeah.
And Pixar's like, no, we're going for who will be the best fit. And I agree. This is such a great blend of it. And
I mean, Ed Asner does Up a few years after this.
Exactly.
Like, really?
Like Jason Lee.
Yeah.
He's a known entity, but he's not like, again, a big draw.
For us, he was known.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I want to see that. But he's perfect as Syndrome.
Sorry.
And he can pull off the kid's voice at the beginning, Buddy, and then later on. And I agree. And across the board, they are so focused on attention to detail, and we're going to bring in the right voice, no matter what you've done, for the character.
Yep.
And I think that is what stands out for Pixar.
Yeah.
They're like, them and Marvel are the only two, I think we said before, like production studio companies. I'm like, yes, I'm confident in the product you're putting out.
Yeah, they have Elio or whatever coming out next year, I think is their next film. But it's just, there's not a time that if you see Pixar, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna go see that.
It's like, I know it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, as recently as 4 years ago, my favorite film of the year was a Pixar movie. So like, they just do, sure, they have a couple of misses, of course, but not like, their misses are still other studios' successes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, The Good Dinosaur is like not that
sort
great.
of. Yeah, Cars 2 is not good.
That's true.
Yeah.
That was a cash grab.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to have.
But
you can't just have, I think, people that work for the voice, to the point where, Mr. Incredible at the end, when he's like, trying to appear like, I got this. And she's like, what's wrong with this? Like, I can't lose you.
Yeah.
I'm not strong enough. And you can't have a rare pairing of like great voice, but also they can convey it in their voice.
Yeah. No, he's
so good.
He's really good.
He's so good in this as far as like, I got this figured out. But once it appears like his family's been destroyed and then comes back, God, it's so good. It's so good. And like Mirage, I don't know that I could pin who that actress is, but she's perfect.
Yeah.
I could probably see her. I know, but
she's passed away since, but
it doesn't stand out to me.
Yep.
But no, it's great. Another additional component is, this is the first movie I remember seeing with Michael Giacchino's score.
I was waiting for you to bring him up. Yeah. God. Of course it's the first movie you remember seeing, because there was only one more before this. It's not even a trivia.
Well, that works. But
it's not even trivia, because you would never get it. I think it's like My Friend the Dog, and it stars Scarlett Johansson from 1998. But he had done video games up until this point.
Yeah, he was like Halo or some other stuff.
It was Call of Duty, like the Medal of Honor. Medal of Honor.
Yes.
Yeah, he had done most of those, and he had done the Lost World video game.
I love it.
Yeah.
He's one of, I think...
And then Alias and some of that, but yeah.
True, and then Lost. Well,
that was after this, though. This was 06.
Well, it started 2004.
2006.
Lost?
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Whatever.
I'm watching the pilot right now.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Maybe it was 04.
Yeah. But his score, like the jazzy component.
Oh, the score's great.
Like just the playing with like the flare horn. Yep. Like, again, the Bond elements and this, it adds so much.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love me some Thomas Newman with Finding Nemo, and Randy Newman's fine. But this was like, oh, this feels great. Adding like a
this is probably the first score that really, because you hear Finding Nemo, you hear Thomas Newman.
Yes.
Short of the beginning of Toy Story, that sort of main theme, you know what I mean? That trumpet theme or whatever, that like you can kind of get some themes.
Yes.
But this is the first sort of, you hear it and you're like, oh, that's The Incredibles. Yeah. And I don't want to go so far as to say it should have been nominated for an Oscar necessarily, but you do think of like Finding Neverland that won.
The Village was up.
The Village was up. So was Thomas Newman for Lemony Snicket. Yep. And then John Williams for Azkaban. And then Finding Neverland.
Again, always a gimme.
Yeah. And then there was one other one in there.
I even looked at it today. God.
Oh, you did?
America. Yes. And I totally forgot.
Yeah. Well, it was the one that I think should have won, actually, which is Passion of the Christ by John Debney. And we
actually, that should have.
We talked about this, I think, with all the other, like Azkaban and The Village. But,
so where do you add this in?
Right. I'm not saying it should have been nominated for an Oscar. Over those 5 films, probably not.
No.
But it is let's not call it a debut.
Sure.
But on a mainstream film debut, this is an impressive score.
Yeah.
For a guy to come in and do that. And then to jump into Lost and and all of a sudden, and then a few years later, he's winning an Oscar for Up. And now his son's a composer. Like, I mean,
really? That's awesome.
Yeah, he's older than you think, man. I don't know.
He's like 67 or something.
I know.
Like that,
he's a journeyman for a long time, and then his son is now a composer on. Where's my phone?
His scores are, when I think of like, I will not necessarily go see a movie because of his scores.
I listen to the but
it's like you're probably top 5 in my book
of the last 20 years for sure.
So fantastic.
Mick Giacchino or whatever.
Michael's son, Mick.
Yeah, he did The Penguin, and then he's got Star Wars Skeleton Crew.
Really?
So he's now sort of
following his footsteps.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so he's kind of a kingmaker almost, because I bet he'll start winning awards too. But the score does stand out. It is. I do think, like, if you start playing that, people who are film fans or animated fans will be like, oh, that's The Incredibles.
Yep.
It's really good. I don't actually have much else. I do want to say I'm always impressed that Pixar, like, continuously takes, like, it's like they made Nemo so that they can make The Incredibles. Like, and they did this with like Monsters Inc. They wanted to have Boo in there so they knew they could have humans later. Like, and like, how can we do a full movie of humans? How can we improve on everything? And now we're going to make this so that we can make this so they can make this. And then The Incredibles comes out, and then it moves into something else down the road. Like, they always had an eye in the future. And I think I love Pixar for that reason. Like, they just knew what they wanted, they had a plan, and they just nailed it.
Yes.
Like, I love it.
And I agree, like, Boo being, because you had humans' hands in the Toy Story films.
Andy and the mom were in it, otherwise, and then Sid. But you kind of had an understanding that it was going to look bad.
And it was an amazing amount of grace. You're like, this is a different kind of like technology, great. But yes, once Boo came in, you're like, okay, we could have a viable human.
Yeah.
In this world.
But then you have the dentist and his daughter, and you do have a couple of humans in Nemo, and then you're like, hey, we can
pull this off.
Yep.
Yeah, so I agree. Like the
building blocks,
planning for it.
Yeah.
And then soon after we'll have Wall-E and so many of the humans that'll be in there. So it's like
everything.
I like that. Yeah. The last thing I'll maybe say is, and Audrey mentioned it, Edna Mole.
Yeah. Is it Mole or Mold?
It's Mole, I think.
Yeah, MOLE.
Yeah,
right?
MOLE. Like, it's such a great character.
Yeah.
And again, speaking of Brad Bird,
yeah.
like,
again,
I'm going to do the voice for it, and it totally works. But I always love, what they're doing from like an homage or honor, record of
mode.
Is
like
it?
a la Mode.
Yeah.
Edna Mode. MODE. But yeah.
Like, the design that goes into building suits.
Yep.
And just that sequence where she's showing Helen, I've done this, I've done that, and like, machine washable, it's very important. Like, it's just so great as far as, again, attention to detail of, it's cool from a superhero standpoint, but as a mom and as like a, probably doing the laundry for this family. Don't worry, you can wash it. And so it's such a great detail.
Yep.
And having her be this like force to be reckoned with, where it comes in, hey, you know, I don't really want the soup, but okay, I guess I can do it. Yes, I can do it. Like, oh, fine, I'll do it. But I think she's a standout for this movie. I love this movie. But like Audrey mentioned, Edna is such a fun character to have.
I was trying to work on a trivia to be like, how many Oscar winners are actually in this movie? Because if you think about, because you have Holly Hunter, and then, but then if you go down to the voices, because you have Pete Docter and Andrew Stanton and some of the other directors, and they all do their own. And Brad Bird is an Oscar winner now. Like, there's a lot of Oscar winners, because if you think of Pixar does a lot of their creators and their animators, they loan voices to themselves. Because you have like Lou Romano, who does the voice of the teacher. He also is Linguini and Ratatouille later on, and now he's not an Oscar winner. But you just have like Joe Ranft, who did Toy Story 3, I think, and I think he actually didn't do Toy Story 3, but because he's been nominated for a couple. Irrelevant. But you just all of a sudden there's all these Oscar winners, and you're like, there's gonna be like a gotcha question.
Yeah.
Like, how many Oscar winners are voicing this? And you're like 10.
All of them.
No, I love it. So, anything else from you?
No, I'll cover in the verdict. I love it.
I'm going up there. I'm going to try it. I'm going to let the jury decide.
As we close out our spotlight segment, we come to our final takes called The Verdict.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
This is where Tim and I give our final verdicts after rewatching the film and decide whether or not the movie held up over the course of 2 decades.
Now you get out of here before I call a bailiff and have you thrown in jail.
This is The Verdict.
I said to hell with it, to hell with it.
A surprisingly subversive film about struggling with living up to your unique potential and abilities in a world focused on keeping everyone the same. The Incredibles is just, wait for it, incredible.
Damn it, I have the same kind of a thing.
Mothers.
All right.
Honoring so many of the tropes of superhero and Bond spy thrillers and putting them through the lens of family and domestic dynamics, writer-director Brad Bird shows how unique he truly is as a filmmaker. Enjoyable from start to finish, with tons of humor and heart thrown in to actually make you care about the stakes. I just love this movie, and I just cannot recommend it highly enough. 4.75 out of 5 for me. One of my favorite animated films. Love it.
Love it. The Incredibles marks another enjoyable and important step in the pretty awesome run of films from the landmark Pixar studios. It is hard to really capture what films like this meant to animation fans 20 years ago. Not that there aren't great examples of animated films, but each and every Pixar film represented a new step in what was possible in the genre. Building off of the films that came before in all areas, humor, visuals, and story, although it doesn't have the heart of maybe some of the ones that came before. Let's be fair. We get to see Pixar's first human endeavor, and what a true family adventure film. Writer-director Brad Bird is the clear star here, though. The story, the visuals, and the overall themes just all come from him. So it's just an absolute Brad Bird. He brings us our first true grown-up Pixar film. I have 4.5 out of 5.
Nice.
Love it.
Come on, not my beer.
With our reactions and verdicts to the movie out of the way, we move on to the reactions to our beers that we drank while rewatching our subject movie.
And if you want to have sex with a disgusting bad brewer with a terrible attitude,
this is where we take a look back at our beers and give our expert ratings for our drinking buddies.
Ugh, whatever. Hey, here's the truth.
This is Drinking Buddies.
Let's get weird.
So our first beer of the evening, and I must say I was kind of thinking this week, could I fit something in from like a theme? And I was like, I
ain't got time for this.
Just wasn't feeling it. So forgive me. Insight Brewing out of Minneapolis, their Dial Tone Hazy IPA with, again, Crush with a K, HBC 586, and Citra. It was a 3.75 for me. It was a nice, hazy, good, solid option. Nothing that really stood out, but I think it was pretty solid.
I have a 4. Yeah, I liked it. I think I'm not a huge Insight fan. We've talked about in the past.
Sure.
Had a good traditional haze to it with a little sweetness. I really liked it. After the first few sips, I was like, I'm liking this more and more.
Like their one-off stuff, like their flagships are fine, but I agree. I'm finding more of their one-off stuff they distribute to stand out.
I liked it a lot. I thought it was a good 4.
Nice, solid. Then friends out of Modest Brewing, collaboration with Back Channel in Minneapolis, and then I guess wherever they are, Mound. And I'm not even going to read the amount of ingredients they have in here because it's kind of insane. It's their hazy IP, double dry hopped hazy IPA. What struggled for me, so I had a 3.5 for me, like oat malt and flaked oats, right? Like I'm reading throughout, like, like the regular kind of hops or whatever. And I'm like, that to me is where it just felt kind of flat for me. It was kind of a nice, okay option, but having it, I was like, I guess I'll finish it, but I wasn't that jazzed about it.
No,
3.5.
No, I had a 3.25. I didn't look at the ingredients on here while we were, so now I'm going to kind of look at it here. And
it's like 2 lines of tons of different hops. I'm like, okay, you're just going overboard with these.
What the hell? Double dry with hand-selected Citra Mosaic, Matuka, Pacific Sunrise, Riwaka, and Nelson Savan. It's too much.
Right? You're just trying too hard.
Yeah, I think I didn't know... Like there's a lemony sort of feel to it, and I like that because that comes from the Citra maybe, but it just didn't know what it wanted to be, and it was just, it feels like a, it maybe, you remember OK Soda?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where that was basically just like the mixture of all the pops or whatever, and that's because that's how they got it.
It was a team up.
Sorry. Do you know that's how they got OK Soda? Is that they got all the they got the excess from the other pop companies.
I guess okay.
And because there's always like excess, and so they got it and they just mixed it all together. So each time it was a little different. It was meant to be kind of like a kid going up and mixing all the sodas together. Same thing. Like this just feels like I don't know what it is.
It's like a mashup we have a bunch of leftovers of the hops.
That's what I'm saying. Sure. Like maybe this was just a collab, and each one was just like, I don't know, bring what you got in the fridge. So I don't know. It was unimpressive. Yeah, both Modest and Back Channel are better than this.
Exactly.
Like
that's where I was like, ooh,
they know better than this. Yep.
Disappointing. And then Peach Barn Brewing or Farmhouse Brewery out of Door County, Wisconsin, happened to be there recently.
Yeah.
I would say in that area, if you ever are out in Door County, visit Peach Barn.
Okay.
They're really great.
No, yeah.
But this is their Silo Sisters Peach Sour. I really like this one. It's a 4.25 for me in terms of like a solid. Remember that like New Glarus one we had? It was like a brown peach sour type of thing.
Yeah.
That was actually much better.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, it's solid. That's why I brought it back. I'm like, I like this one. Again, don't put sours in tall boys. You can't do this. Like you can't do 12 or 16 ounces. But for me, I like this one. It's a 4.25.
I have one for you when you come over. I still haven't had. Well, we still haven't. I'm saving like some tall boys from that one brewery in New York because I like.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
we'll enjoy them over Thanksgiving
because I can't. I was like, I can't. It was by myself.
Yep.
I had a 4 to 5 though. It was really, really good. Very. I probably could have finished the whole one of this one.
It is very mellow.
It was right. It was not over the top sour, and it also wasn't too like milky or too thick. And I really liked it. I had a 4
not like very smooth.
I could probably go up higher than that too. Ooh. Like I could probably convince to bump that up a little bit.
4.25. Yeah. And then to end the evening had Brooklyn Brewery out of that tracks Brooklyn. Their Black Ops,
Salt Lake City, Utah.
Did not see that coming. Twist. Their Black Ops Barrel Aged Stout, aged in 4 Roses small batch bourbon barrels.
Yeah.
It's getting colder out. I was like, you know what? I'm feeling a bourbon. And I like the tall boys, so we can split them. So it's a weird kind of like, don't be a huge bottle.
Yeah.
I liked it as a 4.25.
Yeah.
I mean, super smooth. You know, it's 12.5%, but it doesn't come across like, holy cow.
Nope.
I was very impressed with this.
Yeah, I thought it was the best beer of the night.
True.
And I just think like knowing it was 4 roses, you said?
Yeah, 4 roses, yeah.
Yeah, I mean I didn't quite get the bourbon I didn't look at the can, so I was just kind of going off of flavor. I didn't quite get the bourbon coming out of there, so maybe would have knocked it down a little bit, being like, oh, I was expecting a little more. But I like bourbon. Other people don't. So really solid, really smooth, had a ton of flavor. I really liked it a lot. So
it was a good night.
Yep, it was a really good night for beer. Thank you.
The exciting quiz program, 21.
Our final segment of the episode is Quiz Show.
I have stood on the shoulders of life, and I've never gotten down into the dirt to build.
Where in our research for our subject film, we find some interesting trivia nuggets that we hope will stump the other and possibly intrigue you.
This is not McCarthyism. You're not here to expose for the sake of exposure.
This is Quiz Show.
Well, evidently certain of the contestants were given the answers in advance.
Cheating on a quiz show. It's like plagiarizing a comic strip.
Yeah, so I have 2. Tim has 2 now, since I ruined one for him, apparently. Oh, God.
You would have never guessed it.
Low-hanging fruit.
For those that are wondering, there was a question about Michael Giacchino's score that won for Up.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be like, how many other Oscars has he been nominated for or whatever? I'd be like, oh, maybe.
Yeah.
A couple.
Actually, one more. Ooh, he's been nominated twice, and he won for Up. What is the other Academy Award nomination?
Because it wasn't the Batman, unfortunately.
I know. God, it's so stupid.
Yeah, what was the other one?
Ratatouille.
It wasn't. Yeah, I was just gonna say. I was like, it's probably Ratatouille.
Yep.
But okay.
But only twice? Are you kidding me?
I know, right? With how good he is.
Stupid.
Thomas Newman gets every time.
Yeah.
Or did. Well, he's not dead. He's just probably not getting nominated anymore.
Yeah, 1917.
All right. So I will go first since I did mine on the fly, and we'll let you have your research. So the voice of Mr. Incredible, Craig T. Nelson, is famous for his starring role in Coach and a variety of films and television roles over the years. However, in a bit of podcast irony, in 1995, he would be featured as a chief defendant in what Taylor Hackford of Ray fame directed film. I will give you a hint if you want it.
Devil's Advocate.
That is correct.
Yes.
Did you look at the filmography of Taylor Hackford?
I did.
For Ray?
But
I was like, hey, man.
It's the only legal related one.
Be tonight.
Oh, I didn't realize he was in that.
He's Cullen. He's the guy who gets busted, and Keanu Reeves is actually defending him.
I just know he directed it, but I forgot he's totally in it.
Yep.
Nice.
There we go.
Well, we're going to get the first one here pretty easy for you,
Sure.
but it's just a call out to those. Craig T. Nelson won an Emmy starring in what comedy show from the late 80s?
Coach!
Boom.
Minnesota State.
The Screaming Eagles.
Good show.
It was such a great show. I mean, I haven't seen it, but the nostalgia.
Yeah.
We watched it growing up. It was such a delightful show. Oh, the dumbass Daubert. All right.
That's Patrick Starr, man. Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Oh, he's great. He's a great actor. Yes.
All right. So the Underminer at the end of the film is voiced by Pixar regular John Ratzenberger. Right?
Ratzenberger, yeah.
Ratzenberger was famously viewed as Pixar's good luck charm and voiced roles in all of their films for over 2 decades.
Oh boy.
Recently, though, he has been out of those films. But in what film marked the very first that he did not lend his voice for?
That's a good one. Son of a
I will give you the year as a...
Coco.
That is wrong, but it's a good guess.
I don't think
it's a good guess. Yeah, he is in it, but it was Soul in 2020.
He was
not in Soul, and then he has not been in Turning Red and the one since then.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Soul was the end of.
It's it's been a fun run.
No, Ratzenberger was in. I can't remember what little part he was in, but yeah, he was in all 23 films or whatever leading up to that.
That is pretty awesome. That's nice. So Jason Lee voices Syndrome, and when he's introduced early in the film, Mr. Incredible cycles through a few options, trying to remember his real name. One of which he blurts out is Brody. Jason Lee once played a character named Brody in what 1995 comedy?
Ding, ding. I'll just give myself a couple dings from Mallrats.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember watching it being like, oh, blah, 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 Brody. I was like, oh my God. Deep cut, Brad Bird. Well played.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was good.
Good
All
job.
right.
Nice.
Well, thank you very much. All right. That brings us to the end of the episode. Be sure to find all of our previous episodes on your favorite streaming platforms and watch out for upcoming episodes, including our happy hour on Ray, and Futures on Sideways, and our Christmas episode on the Polar Express. Find us on the web via the metaverse of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and head to 20years4beers.com for more info. We want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. This has been 20 Years, 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
I really like it. There were some parts that I was kind of grossed out by, specifically the kissing.
When Dash started walking on water.
What is that?
We're the only reason your podcast is going good.
Absolutely.
I denied.